All right, let's dive into a really fascinating thought exercise. It's pulled from an article that imagines what our world might look like just a few years from now, completely upended by artificial intelligence. Now, to be clear, this isn't a prediction. It's a scenario, a really well-crafted one designed to make us think. So, what's this all about? Well, the whole thing hinges on this brilliant, kind of counterintuitive question. It basically asks, what if all the hype about AI is right? What if it becomes incredibly powerful, just like the optimists say, but the result for the economy is the exact opposite of what we'd expect? Okay, so let's jump into this future. The year is 2028, June to be exact. And the first thing we see is this number. It's a gut punch. The unemployment rate has just hit 10.2%, a figure that would have sounded completely insane just a few years earlier. And it's not just people's jobs. The whole market is in a nosedive. The S&P 500 has cratered, down a massive 38% from its peak. So the big question is, how on earth did we get here? To figure this out, we're going to put on our hats as like financial historians from the future. We're looking back from this chaotic moment in June 2028 and trying to piece together what just happened. And here's the kicker, the sheer speed of it all. The article makes it super clear this wasn't some slow-moving train wreck. It was a flash flood. In just 24 months, it went from a problem people said was contained to something that totally reshaped the entire economy. It caught everyone flat-footed. So what could possibly cause something like this? What was the spark that lit the fuse? Well, according to this scenario, it was a series of incredibly rapid tech breakthroughs that hit one after another. Let's break down what those triggers were. At the heart of all this is one key piece of tech, agentic AI. And look, we're not talking about your basic chatbot here. These are AI systems that can operate on their own. You give them a big, complex goal, something like, go figure out the market for a new product and write me a business plan, and they can just go do it for days or even weeks without you holding their hand. This chart just shows it perfectly. I mean, look at this. The y-axis, right? That's how long these AI agents can work on their own. In 2024, we're talking about minute-long tasks. A couple years later, it's hours, then days, and by early 2028 in this telling, they're handling multi-week projects completely autonomously. That's not just an improvement, that's a whole new ballgame. And the article lays out this timeline, showing exactly how we got there. It points to three huge moments. First, a sudden, massive leap in AI tools that can write code. Then, AI just becomes a background utility in almost every piece of software we use, like electricity. And finally, these distilled models come along. Think of them as smaller, super efficient AIs that make it cheap enough to run these powerful agents on your laptop or phone, not just on some giant server farm. So these tech breakthroughs, they didn't just cause a little disruption. No, they kicked off this powerful, self-feeding economic cycle that just spun up faster and faster, with frightening results. And this is where things get really interesting, because the article points out a huge difference between this disruption and, the ones we're used to. In the past, you had companies like Blockbuster, who ignored the new tech and got wiped out by startups like Netflix. But here, the exact opposite happens. The huge established companies are the ones who adopt AI the fastest in a desperate bid to survive. Yeah, this quote just nails it. The very companies that had the most to lose from AI, they became the ones pushing it the hardest. It was a frantic race. They weren't fighting the change. They were pouring money into the very technology that was making their own business models obsolete. So how did this work? Well, it's this four-step loop, and it's pretty vicious. Step 1, new AI startups threaten the profits of big companies. So, step 2, what do? They cut their biggest cost, their employees, white-collar workers. Step 3, they take the money they just saved on salaries and pump it right back into buying more powerful AI. And what does that do? Step 4, that new AI makes even more jobs obsolete, which just fuels the next round of cuts, and the cycle starts all over again, but faster each time. And this is such a key economic detail, you gotta get this. This wasn't companies suddenly deciding to spend a ton of new money on capital expenditures. It wasn't a boom, it was a substitution. They were cutting their operational expenses, OPEX, which is mostly salaries, and just shifting a fraction of that money over to AI tools. So a company's total spending could actually go down while its AI spending was going through the roof. Okay, so we've got the how, we see the feedback loop, but why did it wreck the entire economy? Well, according to the article, it's because AI just shattered a core assumption that our entire modern world was built on. I mean, think about it.
For literally all of modern economic history, for centuries, our systems have all been designed around one central unspoken truth.
This is it. This is the bedrock. The ability for a human to think, to solve problems, to create. That was always the one thing you couldn't just mass produce. Capital, land, resources, you could get more of those. But human brain power, that was the rare and valuable ingredient that made everything else work. And that brings us to the core idea of this whole scenario, the intelligence premium unwind. It's a fancy term for a simple, scary idea. What happens when that super valuable, rare thing, human brain power, suddenly isn't rare anymore? When machines can do it just as well, and for way cheaper. The extra value, the premium we all got for our intelligence, just starts to unwind. And that is why the whole system starts to shake. It isn't just about losing your job to a robot. It's that everything, our entire financial world, from how we get a mortgage to how we value a company to how we collect taxes, it's all built on the idea that a person's work, their intelligence, has durable value. When that foundation cracks, the whole building gets shaky. All right, let's hit pause and step out of our 2028 type machine. That was the scenario. It's intense. But the real point of the article isn't to scare us. It's about what we can learn from it, right here, right now. Because remember, this isn't a prophecy. The whole point is that this crisis hasn't actually happened. Those feedback loops, that unwinding, it hasn't started yet. This whole thing is just a thought exercise, a stress test for our own thinking about the future. And that leads to the final, and honestly the most important message of the whole piece. The canary is still alive. You know, like the canary in the coal mine that warns miners of danger? We've received the warning. We still have time to figure this out, to adapt, and to actually prepare for a future where machine intelligence keeps getting more and more powerful. So, in the end, it all comes back to that one massive question. The whole world we live in was designed for a reality where human intelligence was the most valuable, scarce resource. What are we going to do when it's not? Thinking through scenarios like this isn't about being pessimistic, it's about being prepared.